Just want to say thank you to my grandfather, who I never got to meet. He didn't die because of war, but he served in Korea, and my uncle for being a Marine. As I've gotten older, you kind of gain more appreciation for this day and for everything. So if you don't really feel it right now, I promise you it'll come.
I'd like to say thank you to my father, who served as a Marine, and my uncle, Uncle Dub, who served in the Korean Wars.
I would like to thank my paternal grandfather, who served in the 87 Airborne in World War II.
I just want to say thank you to my cousin, Zach Moscow, who's graduating today and becoming a full Marine.
I want to say thank you to both of my grandparents, my grandfather and my grandfather, who fought in the South Pacific and European theater.
I'd like to thank my father, who served in World War II, and my father-in-law, who was in the Navy, and two of my very good high school friends who were killed in Vietnam at 19 and 18 years old.
I'd like to thank my dad, who served in the Persian Gulf. He was a naval officer in the mid-'80s, and my grandpa, who served in Korea.
I'd like to thank my great-grandfather, who was an ace pilot in World War I.
I'd like to thank my grandfather for serving in World War II.
I'd like to thank my grandfather who served in the Korean War.
I'd like to thank my grandfather for serving in World War II and testing out one of the first models of the B-14.
I'd like to thank my grandfather, my other grandfather, and my other grandfather for all serving in the Air Force, and my cousin who's overseas right now.
I'd like to thank my wife's mother and my son Colin's grandmother, who served in the United States Women's Navy in World War II.
I'd like to thank my brother, Josh Bauer, who's served in the Gulf War as a Marine.
I'd like to thank my father, who served in Korea, and my father-in-law, who served with the Public Health Service during Vietnam. And I'd like to thank Christina Keller's big brother, Will Keller, who's part of our Derryfield family, who's graduating from Quantico into the Marine Officer Corps today, with my nephew, Zachary, who Charlie mentioned.
I'd like to thank my husband, Adam Edwards, who served in the 10th Mountain Division. He enlisted in college.
So I would like to thank my father, who served in the South Pacific for 3 years.
My grandpa for being in the Vietnam War.
I would like to thank my father, John Francis Griffin, who served 4 years in the Marine Corps, and my nephew, Patrick Nichols, who currently serves in the U.S. Army.
My grandfather for serving in the Air Force.
I would like to thank my father, who served in the Army during Vietnam.
I would like to thank my grandfather, who served in World War II and the Vietnam War, and my cousin, who is currently stationed off the coast in Syria.
I would like to thank my grandpa for serving in the Air Force.
I'd like to thank a family friend who served in the Air Force. And
I'd like to thank my brother, who's currently in the Navy.
I'd like to thank my grandfather, James Lawrence Jarvis, who served in Korea.